Hi there. Okay, so it's Christian here, back in the studio, in the challanges studio in London, with Ketan from UCL. And you may have seen Ketan talking to Michael a little bit earlier. I'm looking forward to going and watching that. And I've got a few questions for you as well,
Sure.
Ketan. Thank you for coming along and joining us. Just in case people don't see the first video with Michael and you're coming to this one first, could you just give me a little bit of an introduction onto you, your role, what you're doing at UCL?
Yeah, so my name is Ketan. I'm the head of technical operations at UCL, but I'm also the owner for the audiovisual product at UCL as well. My team generally looks after all the audiovisual, desktop and networking elements at UCL. So, as I said before, many hats, which is not quite unusual for higher education, right?
Yep.
UCL is an organization I'm incredibly proud to be associated with. It's one of the largest universities in the UK, over 200 years, nearly 200 years old. We have about 50,000 students, 16,000 staff members.
It's a pretty big service you've got to provide.
It is, right? And it's a very diverse community with our students coming from around 150 countries as well.
Right. And that really does make it a big service for you to deliver. Brilliant. So look, so thank you. So I've got some questions for you. So we'll go through these one at a time, if I may. So obviously, in your work at UCL, I'd be really interested in what you see as the current challenges that is facing the AV industry. And then sort of attached to that, what are any future improvements you see that could be made that might be useful to people like yourself and the rest of the industry?
So I think there are so many challenges that we face in the AV industry, but I think the two specific ones that I care about quite a lot. One, I find the AV industry to be quite inward looking. And what I mean by that is they're very protectionist about the technology they have. This whole idea of creating a common shared ecosystem doesn't quite exist. And if you think from my perspective, right, I like options. I want to have a variety of options available to me and still be able to tap into all the functionalities. Whereas it's not quite there with the AV industry right now. If you go to a very specific manufacturer and say I want to do X, Y, and Z, they will say you need to buy kit A, B, C, and D from us.
Right.
If you go somewhere else, it's not going to be possible.
Yeah.
So that's one challenge. The other challenge that I find interesting is a lot of our students, right? They have sort of they have lived their life surrounded by technology, absolutely, right? And they are very, very comfortable with technology. So when they come into universities, what they're looking for really is engagement.
Yeah.
Right, massively. Our academics, on the other hand, they have very specific requirements about how they want to teach as well.
Yep.
And sometimes there's a gap between those two requirements.
Right.
And I think our AV industry, while being very interested in technology, doesn't always think about how we're bridging the gap.
Yeah. So why do you think that is? Why do you think that is it a gap between the academics who are maybe a little bit older and aren't so comfortable with that technology, or is it just because the AV industry is very shallow in its product development? Everybody, for example, sound bars, right? Everybody's got a sound bar. Everybody's got one of those devices, and Teams room, Zoom room. It's that, and they're just going after that because that's what they can sell on a mass element.
I think if you go to ISE is a great example, right? You go to all these stands and you go and speak to all these manufacturers. They will talk to you about the sound bars, the screens, and what's the display rate, all of those things.
Yeah.
What you will find very rarely is people talk about experience.
Right.
So I think the AV industry as a whole needs to start thinking about experience.
Yes.
Products come from experience, right?
Yes.
And so if you start talking about the experiences, then actually suddenly there is a shift in how you develop your products. Academics, right? If they want to teach a certain module in a very specific way, it's because that's the best way of teaching it.
Yeah.
And I think we were talking about this sooner, right? A maths lecturer wants a large writing surface that they can write long, complex equations on, right?
Yep.
The student, on the other hand, wants to feel engaged when they are going through that module.
Yep.
So it's very hard to find a product that would merge both of those things together.
Well, well, so interestingly, well, this is the only equation. Oh no, that's not even. I don't even know that equation. But look, here we go. So I can get rid of that. I can erase that, and I can get rid of it. I can bin that. Do that over there. Let's actually see if I can write that properly. Here we go. Select my pen again. Select the colour. E equals MC squared. There we go. So maybe actually coming here today has been quite helpful. So hopefully, yeah, we'll have a further conversation about this. But you're right. I think you're very. It's very interesting. The manufacturers are about product design to fit specific things, screens, sound bars, and they do that as best as they can. But they're not the people who are actually deploying it into a solution.
No.
And they only do part of the solution often. And then it's the systems integrators or the designers or the consultants or the internal teams that actually have got to do that. We've talked on some of the other videos that you might have seen where Michael and I have chatted about. I actually think that a shift needs to go to the end users actually designing, taking more responsibility for the design. So like UCL, actually do the design and then test your designs to see if they provide that experience. And I think that if the industry sort of moves to that and the end users start to move towards that, that may help that.
And I think you're right. And if you look at what's happening in the end user section, I think that's already happening. People are saying this is the experience we want to create. And that's why they're looking for options, right?
Yep.
The days are gone when they would put all the eggs in one basket in terms of manufacturers.
Yeah.
Because they are finding now that actually X piece of kit from here and a Y piece of kit from there combined together actually gives a much better experience.
Yeah.
But then if you look at the software behind it, it's not quite built to work interlinked.
No, and that's where that whole process of taking the responsibility to design it and then checking that it does actually do what it's doing. I think that's really cool. And actually, providing those services to organisations to actually help them do that. If you don't have the team in house to do it, I think that's really important thing. But that does leave us on to. Make sure. There we go. Does move us on then to. So, what are the challenges that you have recently had to address? What other things have you done in UCL that you've done to improve that service? And what was the most successful and important one of those?
I think we have done quite a lot actually in the last 1 year, but I'm going to pick the most recent one because they're sort of playing in my mind right now. And we're talking about assistive listening. Right. Historically, it's all been about induction loops.
Yep.
You put an induction loop in a space, you put the driver in, and you are now inclusive.
Yep.
Right? Problem with induction loops is they break quite often. And
difficult to install.
Somebody's
going to come and cut them when they're actually
exactly. And especially if you're an organization like UCL, where you've got so many listed buildings, you can't just start ripping carpets up and down every time it breaks. So maintaining it on a regular basis becomes very, very difficult. So it's been a challenge that we have been working on. So the AV designers, my AV support teams, we've been working with our states colleagues, our inclusion colleagues, everybody. And I think the recent development with Wi-Fi based assistive listening systems or Auracast based listening systems, they are now providing a very real tangible alternative for us. So for the past year and a half we've been working through that. We've made some tremendous progress. We've got a lot of buy-in, a lot of excitement. But I think we also found some added benefits to it as well, which is you put a system like that in, doesn't just benefit those who need in terms of listening help, but also helps those who have neurodivergent needs or just students who want to enhance the listening experience, right? I said our students now are surrounded by technology. You watch them commuting, they will have the headphones on. They would love to walk into a lecture theatre, put the headphones on and just listen intently of what's been said. So it also has all those added benefits as well.
Well, interestingly, I actually designed and deployed a solution like that last year for a large global organisation into their big conference facility. And it started in 2 points, because the other benefit of that I don't know whether you've actually deployed yet or whether you're thinking of doing is, and you said with a diversity of students, is the translation ability with that.
Yes.
So you can actually layer that, not just and you can get live translation into lectures, which is spectacular. It gets your message much further.
You're absolutely right. And it's an app-based system, which our students are very comfortable using, right? And, you can then set the EQs, you can set translation services, as you said. There are so many benefits to doing something like that. And plus, if something goes wrong, it's a question of just replacing the box.
Yeah.
Right? And getting it repaired. It's not ripping carpets up, moving furniture around, all of that's messing about, right?
Yeah, no, I think that you're right. I think the writing is on the wall or underneath the carpet for induction loops. No, that's really interesting. So, but actually talking about ripping things out and taking things and changing things around, one of my big things is recycling and either upcycling. So how are UCL looking at that at the moment? Because obviously you're going to have technology might move for you, but actually some of that technology is still useful. ISC, we heard that any Sharp, sorry, I shouldn't say that, they have now got a second life warranty on some of their products. And I know that some of the other manufacturers are doing that, but it's quite difficult to actually get proper upcycling, recycling of products. How are you?
So I think if you ask me saying, do we have a cohesive policy in place? No, we don't. But what we do try and attempt to do is things like, if, for example, a screen comes out, can we repurpose it into a digital signage screen somewhere, for example, right? Yep. Or can we take some of the kit and put them down as our spare stock so that if something goes wrong, we've got something on the shelf to replace it with. But I think we should be doing more. Yeah. There's definitely a feeling, all of us have this feeling within our AV stack that we need to be doing more. And we are trying to work with our integrator partners to see what that might look like. We are coming up to a renewal of our framework, our AV framework. Yeah. And so one of the things that we have done is bring our sustainability team onto the governance group, so they can actually drive some of those conversations on our behalf.
Yeah. No, and I ask you because I often see that organisations don't have that coherent policy in place right now. They do from all of the other bits of recycling, but actually, what do we do with the kit? How do we power it? How do we use smart technology to power devices down, etc. Those sorts of things, as well as sustainability, as recycling is starting to creep in. So it's great to hear that.
And all the universities are now very, very big on sustainability, right? Yeah. They all want to show their sustainability footprint. So any procurement we do, whether in IT or in AV, our sustainability team is very closely involved with it. Yeah. I think because our framework is coming up for renewal in the next few months, it's quite timely, so we can actually negotiate at a very, very basic level of what that looks like.
And I think it's the same thing as coming, the design of solutions coming from you as the end client, the user of the facilities. I think it does. If you are driving that, will force the industry to actually move in the right direction and not just, it's green sustainability tick. No, it's actually providing services that you are driving and your team is driving. So it's great to hear that you're actually bringing others into that space. So, okay, so that's really interesting. Thank you very much for that. Now, I've got one question, because I like to ask this question. I asked it of Michael, but we've got to record him, what he says as well. But I would like, and be very interested, if you had one piece of advice or soundbite that you would like the AV industry to hear from Ketan, what would it be?
It's actually something I've been saying for the past 1 year to a variety of suppliers already. So when they hear this, they're not going to be surprised, right?
You know who you are.
My big thing is somebody needs to take the lead in creating a common ecosystem, right? You need to have well-published APIs that can do 90% of the things, right? It needs to be APIs which are open sourced out to pretty much anybody who wants to use it, leverage it to create interesting products. Yep. Don't be too much of a protectionist. Your customers want options. If COVID, if the recent various conflicts around the world, if all of that has taught us anything, then the supply chain can get disrupted at any point in time, right? Yep. There are so many things happening in the world right now, the supply chain can get disrupted tomorrow. Your organizations that you're working with want options. They do not want to get bogged down with a single thing saying, we have to put all our eggs in this basket. Yep. So, creating that common ecosystem is the need of the hour.
Brilliant. And I definitely see that as well. I do see that devices not talking together, and when you design them as a consultant or a specifier, you're putting them together, sometimes that'll be the first time that they've ever been together, and you then have to spend a lot of time putting them together and then checking the functionality and make sure they work. And even that's down to control systems sometimes with devices that they should be able to control. You have to actually go through that whole testing process. So I think that's brilliant. I think that ping there was probably to tell us. Thank you very much. And that's it. But Ketan, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciated. Please do come back. And if you'd like to come and use the studio, and the same to everybody else out there, if you want to come and do this sort of thing in the studio, add some other content, maybe next time we'll bring in some videos of some of the rooms that you've done and stuff like that.
Yeah, sounds good.
Brilliant.
But thank you for having me.
That's a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you guys
Thank you.
for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Bye.